NHS for 27 years, going strong. The NHS, as you know, is founded on universal ethics and the principle of access to the best available treatment at the point of need. But I was contacted recently by a whistleblower whose experience suggests that ethics and principles are no longer fixed and are being destroyed by gender ideology. That we have arrived at a new frontier of harm. This fight is not only about women's rights in healthcare, but all patients' rights, men and women. The whistleblower, Bill, that's not his real name, is an NHS professional working in a ward for patients with kidney disease, some of whom have had kidney transplants there. If you are on the transplant list, it means that you are at the end stage of kidney failure, already medically frail and prone to infection. After transplant, you are at a very high risk of infection because you are now taking powerful immunosuppressant drugs to stop your body rejecting the new kidney. And because you're in a hospital, it's a hotbed of super strains of drug-resistant bacteria and viruses. Dormant diseases like TB and herpes can reactivate in your body, and then you can infect others. And also, you have puncture wounds all over your body where the tubes and lines go in, and catheter. They are easy routes for bacteria to go in. So, you must be safeguarded right at the outset. You stay in a side room, and only the most essential people can come in. They are covered in gowns and gloves. There can be no deviation from this protocol because you may die or lose the kidney. But on Bill's ward, they do deviate from it to benefit one special group of people. Men who say they are not men are given side rooms straight away because the government said they should, even if they have no clinical need for them. And they have no need for isolation. It's just that they don't want to share a ward or a bay with other men. So, Bill told me 2 such men were admitted to his ward recently with less serious conditions. They went straight into side rooms that they didn't need. And this meant that 2 transplant patients had to be nursed in the open bay. One of them was okay, but the other became seriously ill with infections. Her new kidney failed to work. Biopsies were taken. Her husband and children were very upset. This was after years of deteriorating illness and dialysis and the huge investment of the surgery and a precious donated kidney, perhaps from a living donor. Almost all of this was thrown away with the life of this woman. And Bill said, when I walked onto the ward and I saw her straight after surgery on an open bay, on morphine, with tubes and lines, with medics, and everyone else's visitors walking in and out, I gasped out loud. When you have NHS staff gasping in horror, something is very wrong. The rest of the team was very unhappy, including the surgeons and the transplant coordinator, but the ward manager's hands were supposedly tied. The decision was imposed from higher up, so ideologues are perched even at this cutting edge of extreme illness, taking clinical decisions away from clinical hands. How did these managers choose these women? Why did they say, you can set aside the protocol for her? Well, they wouldn't dare to play this game with infectious patients. An outbreak of infection would be guaranteed, and vulnerable people would die. This is the stuff of obvious scandal. They're not so stupid. There would be sackings and closure of the unit. So no, they will protect the infectious people in the side rooms, and they will limit harm by sacrificing the immune suppressed. And that way, only one person might die, and the death will be explained by the known risk of infection, identified as unavoidable, and the scandal then is invisible. This woman and her husband don't know that a side room was given away to a man who didn't need it, that she was sacrificed for his comfort and his luxury belief. She would have been told that no side room was available, and she will have signed consent forms to accept a high infection risk. And the harm that was done to her is not recorded anywhere except in the memories of the staff, one of whom, I'm very happy to say, blew the whistle. The man who said he was not a man looked entirely mannish. The unknowing staff were all told off for misgendering him. So clearly, it would have been ridiculous to place him on the women's bed. They would never have got away with it. He had nothing to fear whatsoever from being on a man's ward. He looked entirely like a man, because he is. So managers, like politicians from all political parties, they aim to appease in the most convenient way possible. Just as they handed away the rights to women-only spaces, they hand out side rooms to people who don't need them. And they gain political expediency, not imagining that they could ever suffer by this. They trivialize us, protesting these decisions, and say that we are toxic for speaking about it. We are toxic. They say there is no conflict of rights, that rights are not pie, but clearly they are, when resources are fixed and finite. So in the NHS, we now have a two-tier system in place. Rights for the special men with identities, and everyone else is fitted in around them. Our future leader, Tony Blair, may be able to explain to Keir Starmer in ways that I can't, because Starmer has difficulty with the higher pitch of women's voices. One day, Starmer, it may be you, it may be your wife or your family, facing life-threatening complications because clinical decisions were taken out of clinicians' hands. And the fear he feels then will overshadow the fear he shows now in avoiding the issue, avoiding clinicians and ignoring women. I will report the trust to the CQC. They've got previous history with them, and not in a good way. But yet they are a Stonewall diversity champion. Let them reflect on where their priorities are. We should never allow any ideology to infiltrate the health service. Like a parasite, it will damage it to serve its own purpose and corrupt its values. It has gone far enough, and we must bring this corruption to an end and heal. Thank you to Kelly J. King.